guest is a best-selling author whose books, Everything is Illuminated, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and Eating Animals, all made the leap from the page to the big screen.
In We're the Weather, saving the planet begins at breakfast. He shifts his focus to the environmental crisis, suggesting that if we really want to protect the planet, we should start with what's on our plates. Please welcome Jonathan Safran Foer.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Many of us, including me, first knew you as a novelist. This is your second work of nonfiction, and it's dealing with climate change. And with all the information, the new information that keeps coming at us, and it seems so complex, how do you keep yourself informed and up to date on this information so you can share it in a book like this?
So I don't know if information is really the problem anymore. It was maybe 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago.
Science, really.
Yeah, I mean, just out of curiosity, how many people in this room accept that the planet is warming because of human activity? Yeah. So you don't really meet people anymore who deny that. There's an impression that like half of America doesn't believe in the science of climate change. In fact, about 9% of America doesn't. Twice as many Americans believe in the existence of Bigfoot as deny the existence of climate change. So the problem is not what we know, it's what we do with what we know. Like everybody knows now that we are destroying the planet because of what we do. And everybody in this audience and everybody watching this cares about that fact. But very few of us, myself included, do much. And so when I wrote this book, what I wanted to do was it's not that I discovered information and wanted to share it with people. I really wanted to wrestle with myself and figure out, God, why does somebody who knows this much, who cares this much, I have kids, I care about the future, why aren't I doing more? So I wanted to figure out what it was that I could do, both in the sense of what matters in the world and also what my own limits are. Because there are a lot of things we could do for the environment that would be great, like never fly again, but I flew here from New York today. You know, it's not as simple as saying this is the right thing to do and I'm not going to do it.
Okay, so let's dive in there because the subtitle of your book is Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast. And so you say that the starting point for this book is understanding that our planet is actually sort of serving as an animal farm. So
Yeah.
what does that mean and why did you start there in trying to understand climate change?
So when most people think about climate change, an image that comes to mind is like the poster for An Inconvenient Truth, if you remember that.
Yes.
Like two big pipes coming out of a factory with smoke coming out of them. Or maybe you think about a polar bear on a little like piece of ice floating around, lonely, depressed, looking for somewhere to go. In fact, there's a better way of looking at what's going on, which is that our planet is a kind of factory and it's also a farm. And according to the United Nations, animal agriculture is one of the top 2 or 3 causes of every significant environmental problem on the planet, locally and globally. Air pollution, water pollution, deforestation, and greenhouse gas emissions. The IPCC, which is now the gold standard for science about climate change, has said that even if we were to do everything else that we're talking about in terms of fossil fuels, we just cannot save the planet unless we eat a lot less meat and dairy. So when I say a lot less, I'm not saying everybody has to go vegan. That's not what we're talking about. In the same way that we don't all have to stop flying, and we don't all have to stop driving, and we don't all have to stop having babies. But we have to do less of those things. And I think we have to do less in a way that most people are not only able, but eager to do. I think a lot of us have been feeling a kind of like very low level, almost depression or sadness about the awareness that we want to be a part of the solution. We don't want to be a part of the problem. And yet we're not part of the solution. So I think as we take these steps, if we say, hey, I'm not going to be a vegetarian, but I can definitely imagine not eating meat for lunch. Like that sounds possible to me. You give it a try. And I think for people, even people who love meat, and I should say I'm a vegetarian who loves meat. Like I like the way it looks, I like the way it smells, I like the way it tastes. I just don't eat it. I think as we start to make these steps, we'll find that it doesn't actually feel like a sacrifice at all. It feels like a relief to finally be acting on the values that we have.
Wow.
Jonathan, I want to delve just quickly into that. We don't have a lot of time left, but the whole idea that we're inundated with so many things, you know, being told we can do this to help the environment, that, but you say we should prioritize just shifting the way we eat. Why?
So I want to start by saying it's not me who's saying it, not any more than I would say 1 + 1 = 2. This is just science. It's not controversial at all. There are 4 things that we do that matter more than all others, which are flying less, living without a car if possible, having fewer kids, and eating fewer animal products. So 85% of Americans, I assume it's more or less the same here, drive to work. And and we live in cities that were designed to require cars. More than half of the flights that are taken are for business or non-leisure personal purposes, like visiting a sick relative. And most people watching this aren't deciding right now whether or not to have a kid. Otherwise, they wouldn't be watching this. So we have to do less of those three things. But eating is different because we do it 3 times a day. It's a choice that we make 3 times a day. And for most of us, it's not constrained. You know, nobody forces you to eat one thing or another. So it seems like a great place to start.
And that is where we're going to end for now. What a great tease for your book, Jonathan. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing it. Thank you. The book is called Whether Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast.